Packers get good and bad news that we will talk about in this video. If you haven't subscribed, take a second to hit that subscribe button. Let's jump into it. Okay, so latest news coming out of Green Bay ahead of the Chicago Bears game is that our rookie running back, Marshawn Lloyd, has hit the IR, which means he's going to be out for the remainder of the season. We're not getting him back in the playoffs or anything like that. Okay, so Marshawn Lloyd was one of those running backs I was really looking forward to seeing out on the football field for the Packers this season. I thought he and Josh Jacobs were going to make a great 1-2 punch. Well, let's take a look at the depth chart right now as it sits right before the Chicago Bears game. Christian Watson, he's listed as questionable. I would be shocked if he's out there against Chicago. I say just rest the guy, get him back healthy for the playoffs. That is going to be a much needed weapon for Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur's offense there. You've got Marshawn Lloyd on the IR. We can't expect him back at all this season. Andre Dillard, he's going to be out this game. Jordan Morgan, another one who's on IR, out for the remainder of the season. You got Brenton Cox Jr. listed as questionable. Remains to be seen whether or not he's going to be out there. I would be shocked if the Packers put him out there. Why risk injury against the Bears? Get him back ready, healthy for the playoffs. Brenton Cox is a great edge rusher, I feel, for this Packer defense under Jeff Hafley. You got Quay Walker, who's going to be absent in this game as well. He's going to be a body that's going to be needed. Now, I know that Eric Wilson has been filling in very well for Quay Walker's absence, and I know he's had a very disappointing season, but anytime you can add depth and have extra depth there, it's going to help the Packers out immensely. Evan Williams, another guy that's going to be missing from this game. Not surprised there. We're going to be hopefully getting him back ready for the playoffs. Now, who we play will remain to be seen. Zane Anderson is another guy that we won't see against Chicago, but he'll be back ready to go. More than likely, he's got the concussion protocol, all that stuff. Jair Alexander, obviously gone for the remainder of the season, which is a huge blow for this Packer defense. And we've talked about that in depth in a lot of videos here. So what does it mean now for the Packers? So Marshawn Lloyd, again, he's one of those guys. He only played in one game. He had 6 carries for 15 yards, 1 reception for 3 yards, and that was against Indianapolis. This dude's been plagued with injuries all season long, all preseason long, all training camp long. Jordan Morgan, another guy that has just been littered with injuries, but that means you turn to Emmanuel Wilson, so nothing's going to change on the injury or on the running back depth front there. He's got 89 carries for 429 yards. He's averaging almost 5 yards a carry, 3 touchdowns. Emmanuel Wilson had a very good year filling in for the injured Marshawn Lloyd. He stepped up good. The Packers went out and got Chris Brooks. Chris Brooks contributed in a big way, and this is going to be a guy that can contribute to the postseason. He's been there, done that. He's got 28 carries, 124 yards on the season for the Packers, 4.43 average with a touchdown, but he can also do it in the air as well. We know that he can be a threat, a dual threat type of running back there. So when we start talking about this rookie class and what Brian Gutekunst went out and drafted, I know Jordan Morgan's been a complete disappointment, but pump the brakes with Jordan Morgan. I of course, we would have loved to seen some other defensive guys taken at that position, but Jordan Morgan over the long haul, I know there was some teams looking at him, especially the Commanders, that wanted to trade up to get Morgan, but the Packers surprisingly picked him where they did. Now, he's going to be a project, but this guy could end up being a stud. I'm not saying he's going to be. Remains to be seen. I really hope this pick pans out for the Packers. And you got Edgerrin Cooper, who's just been an absolute animal. Probably you can make the argument he's the best offensive player out there for the Packers. He and Xavier McKinney and Jair Alexander are my top 3 defensive guys for the Packers and Jeff Hafley's defense. You've got Javon Bullard, who's had a pretty nice season. Now, Edgerrin Cooper, getting back to him, though, he's got the highest rated PFF score for the Packers defenders out there. He's got 82.7 PFF score. Javon Bullard ranks a lot lower on the PFF score of a 49.6. Now, this dude, I like him. I think he has potential. He's struggled a bit now. Whether he finds his role under Jeff Hafley's defensive schemes this upcoming season, and hopefully catch a stride in the playoffs a little bit more than what we've seen now. Javon Bullard, Again, 49.6 PFF overall score. Marshawn Lloyd, another guy that the Packers took in the third round with the been a complete disappointment there. I was really hoping to see a nice, great 1-2 punch with Josh Jacobs, Marshawn Lloyd, but the Packers haven't completely struggled there because Emmanuel Wilson, like we've talked about, and Chris Brooks have stepped up pretty good for the Packers. Tyron Hopper, we knew was going to be a little bit more of a project type player. And then you've got Evan Williams. Evan Williams has been a great pick for Brian Gutekunst in this Packer defense under Jeff Hafley. Evan Williams has got a overall PFF score of a 72.6. To me, one of the better defenders, especially in the secondary in this year's draft, and the Packers got him in the fourth round, so I think it was a great pickup for them. Jacob Monk remains to be seen. I think this guy could be our center next year. Katan Oladapo, I really liked this dude coming out of college. Surprised we haven't seen a little bit more out of him and Hopper. Now, Hopper, I think, shows a lot of promise. Same thing with Oladapo, but I think these guys are a little bit too raw yet. Travis Glover, Michael Pratt was a bust. Kalen King. Now, with the injuries to Jair Alexander, it leaves the question, why don't the Packers just call up Kalen King, and utilize him, especially against the Chicago Bears? So remains to be seen whether or not we're going to see that at all. But for the Packers, bad news is that Marshawn Lloyd is out for the remainder of the season. But good news is that, and the encouraging news is that when we start talking about the depth chart for the Packers, they're probably going to be getting back all of those guys that we had talked about. Christian Watson, he's trending towards healthier. So that's going to be a guy that is going to be important to this Packer offense. So getting guys and getting everybody back, like Bretton Cox, like Christian Watson, like Andre Dillard, just for depth there on the offensive line, Zane Anderson, Evan Williams, those are all going to be guys that the Packers should expect to see back into the playoffs. But leave your comments. Let me know your thoughts on the absence of Marshawn Lloyd for the remainder of the season. Is that concerning news for you? And as always, go Pack Go.